Grace and peace to you all, and welcome to the Calvary Road with Pastor Sam Allen.
I want to tell you, he is trying to describe the indescribable. So he'll do the best he can, but if you think, well, okay, I see it, so I get it. No way, not even close. It hasn't begun to really connect and click in our brains and minds and hearts. How wonderful, how glorious that which God is preparing for us will be.
Only with Jesus, only with you.
In today's broadcast, we move into chapter 21 of the book of Revelation. Now, this has to be one of my favorite chapters in all of Scripture. John is shown the new heaven and the new earth. He is shown the new Jerusalem. No more death, no more tears, no more sorrow, no more crying. So let's listen in and hear all this good news.
Let's turn in our Bibles to Revelation chapter 21. Title of our study this morning, God with Us. It's an interesting season we're living in. I'm sure most of you are paying at least some attention to the news. And I have to tell you, for the first time in all the time I've been teaching through the Word, I actually have some regrets about Revelation. And this is the regret. I wish we were just starting it now instead of concluding it in this next couple of weeks. And here's why. There are so many things that have happened in the past few months and even in the past few weeks and even up to last night where I was watching the news and they said that China and Russia have gotten together and they've decided that they don't really like the idea of the dollar being the world currency and with its decline and value and other issues. Well, they're saying we need, one currency. Neither are suggesting we need to use their currency. They're saying we need a one world currency. And I'm thinking, that's just amazing, Lord. I mean, we've been looking at this and teaching it and considering it for 30 and more years, those of us who believe Revelation to be future and literal. But to see the pieces of the puzzle coming together and to see things that were only a thought or an idea or a concept even 20 years ago coming to fruition. Now, how long will it be before they decide it's not going to be the dollar? Depends on how long it takes our politicians to make the dollar worthless. And the way they're going. Hey, we're headed there quicker and quicker, aren't we? In fact, if you're freaking out, and I know some of you worked very hard, and some of you are young, and you're like, oh, what's the big deal? Hey, if you'd been working for 40 or 50 years and saving, and your money was in your home, which has lost value, or in your retirement, which is disappearing, hey, when you're getting older, those are serious issues. But you need to know that, hey, this is a time to rejoice because as all these things come together, well, we're told, look up, our redemption draws nigh. The trumpet will sound, the dead in Christ will rise first. We who are alive and remain will be caught up together with them and with Him in the air. There'll be a resurrection, there'll be a rapture, we'll be reunited. We'll be with the Lord. And what we see in Revelation 21, it takes us beyond the tribulation that is yet future. It takes us beyond the millennium that we considered last time. It takes us all the way into the eternal state. What's the difference? Well, there will be some things in the millennium that we'll never hear of or see from or see again when we get to the eternal state. Well, we read here in verse 1, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no more sea. Now, the need for a new heaven and a new earth goes beyond the decay and the depravity of this system, because God could just clean up the planet. He did it before with the flood. We know He's going to do it next time by fire. But apparently, from reading 2 Peter and other passages related to the eternal state, God is going to absolutely and utterly destroy that which we look at and it seems so solid and lasting and people have so much hope in. In fact, let me read you 2 Peter 3:10. The day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, Peter says, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise. Now, that's exactly what Revelation 21 says. The first heaven and the first earth had passed away. But there's more. He says the elements, Peter that is, will melt with fervent heat. And this begins to sound very much like what would happen, not if we split a atom or 10 atoms, but if we split thousands or hundreds of thousands of atoms. The elements melting with fervent heat, the earth and the works in it burnt up. Therefore, he says, Peter, and this is 2 Peter 3:11, since all these things will be dissolved. What things? everything. All these things will be dissolved. What manner of persons ought you to be? In holy conduct and godliness, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of God, because of which the heavens will be dissolved, being on fire, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for a new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells. Well, apparently, if we put Peter together with Revelation 21, and of course we should, those scientists who try to explain how we got here in the first place by looking back, and some of them are into this thing called the Big Bang, I'm starting to think the Big Bang might be a reality, only it's yet future, you see. It's not back there, it's out here. Why? Because it sounds very much like everything exploding, everything disintegrating, everything gone, and then God just says, hey, let me show you what I can do. It only took 6 days for him to create this heavens and this earth. What's he doing for the last 2,000 years? Preparing a place for us. And now there'll be yet another 1,000 years after we're with him and enjoying him, the millennial reign on earth. And then we'll get to see this new heaven and this new earth, for the first heaven and earth had passed away. Now there's something a little disturbing, at least for those of us who, love the ocean and all that. It says, and there was no more sea. Now I'd like to tell you that can't be what it appears to be, but I've noticed that mostly we need to take God literally unless it's obviously figurative. So I want to say, here's the hope, and here's the part that helps my, troubled heart. When I read something like no more sea, I'm like, what? No more walks on the beach? No more sunsets on the beach? I don't care about surfing. I'm past that, but I just want to be at the ocean. Listen, here's the deal. Isaiah 65:17. Behold, I create a new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered or come to mind. Oh, I'm grateful for that. God just saying, hey, you're not even going to think about it. It's going to be so good, what I create for you, what we're going to experience together, that the past, you're never going to give it another thought. So that's going to be not only useful to those of us who think, well, I'm going to really miss the ocean. That's going to be useful to us when we think, well, what about the people that we left behind? What about those people we loved and shared with and that never committed, that never came around? He's saying, hey, don't even sweat it. Now listen, there's something else wonderful here, because these 3 words, no more sea, have some very practical application. And it's a reminder to me, and you know this, of course, that as we read through the Word, God can speak to someone over here in a certain way and someone here in another way and here in another way. Why? Because there's one interpretation, but many applications. Here's how these 3 words would have encouraged different believers in the first century and how they should encourage some of us today. No more sea would mean no more storms, no more floods, no more hurricanes, no more death and devastation, for the sea, was a deadly place and still is. The sea and the things that come from it responsible for all sorts of devastation on the earth. So those who had suffered through, like Paul, the many shipwrecks and such, he'd think no more sea, that would be good. And then there's something else. No more sea will mean no more separation. Remember, John received this revelation on Patmos. He was on this small, desolate island separated from friends and family and the fellowship of the saints. And so when he thinks no more sea, he's like, no, what a bummer. No, he's thinking no more separation. I'll be able to get to and fellowship with anyone and everyone I want to be with. And the third thing it would have meant, at least to some of them, and again, we're just applying it. We're not saying this is the interpretation. No, we're just saying here's application. No more sea means no more sin. At least to John's brethren, those who had grown up under the system where they had sacrifices and feasts and festivals and the temple and all of that. Why? Because the temple had been destroyed. And lots of them would be struggling. Well, we can't offer the sacrifice. There's no laver for the priest to wash in. There's no altar for the sacrifice to be made. There's no Holy of Holies for the blood to be applied. And he's saying, don't even sweat it. It's not going to be an issue. It's not going to be a problem. There will be no more sin. There'll be no need to ask for forgiveness. Well, a new heavens, a new earth. We can't begin to imagine them. So John is going to try to describe them. And I want to tell you, he is trying to describe the indescribable. So he'll do the best he can, but if you think, well, okay, I see it, so I get it. No way, not even close. It hasn't begun to really connect and click in our brains and minds and hearts. How wonderful, how glorious that which God is preparing for us will be. Well, he mentions next the holy city, something, well, it's hard to imagine. A holy city. I mean, a holy person, yes, but a holy city? He says, I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them. And they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There'll be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There'll be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Now, I don't have to tell you, cities today are filled with danger and crime. And ordinarily, the bigger city, the more dangerous and the more crime. But he is talking about a city where there's no danger, where there's no crime, where you don't have to worry or keep an eye out or keep your head up. He's talking about something, well, we can't really conceive of in its fullness, a holy city where there's no sin, where there's no suffering, where there's no crime. A city, and note, the New Jerusalem will be the capital city of the new earth. Interesting, because from the very beginning, God chose the Jerusalem there in the land of Israel to be the epicenter of his kingdom on earth. And today, people fight over that land. They fight over that city. Why? Because there's a spiritual dynamic, not just a social one, not just an ethnic problem. It's a spiritual issue. So John sees what's coming, the future. A holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. Now, this chapter describes a literal, tangible, physical city. It has gates, it has walls, and, it has pavement, all those things. We're going to consider them when we get further in. But he also describes the city as a bride. And some are saying, well, is it a city or is it a bride? And the answer is yes. It's a city and it's a bride. And I like this picture because, well, you know that Jesus from the beginning calls the church his bride. We will be a part of this. We will not be all of it. We'll see that as we continue here. But get this. This is long after the espousal, long after the wedding feast. This is long after. We're looking way ahead. And here's one of the things I've noticed, having interacted with lots of Christians over the last 30 plus years, is when somebody has recently been married, a guy will introduce his gal as, hey, I want you to meet my bride. But then, 3-4 years go by, I want you to meet my wife. And then it's like 5 or 10 or 20 years go by, I like you to meet, well, there's a whole lot of things husbands call their wives that are inappropriate, and I'm not going to take you down that road. But I'd like to suggest that, well, if we're using Jesus as the model, he's calling his church, after all this time, his bride. It's a glorious and beautiful and wonderful picture of intimacy. No relationship on earth is closer than that of husband and wife. Why? We choose one another. We commit our lives to one another. And of course, that's why there's such a great attack on marriage and on the family. Well, she's prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. That word adorned is a beautiful word. We get our word cosmetics for it. It means she's all decked out and perfected. She's beautiful, and she's been made beautiful by the one who chose her and loved her and has perfected her. Well, the greater of all of this, and there are actually 5 things we're told about the city here. We get more later in the chapter. We get even more when we get into our last chapter next time in Revelation. First thing, we already made mention of it. It's a holy city. It's like the Garden of Eden before the fall, only better. And here's why it's better. Nothing evil will ever enter in. And once Satan entered into that garden and started interacting with Eve, everything went bad for them and for us as well. Nothing evil or sinful, no liar or lie will ever be there. We see it at the end of the chapter. It's a beautiful city. That's the second thing. A holy city and a beautiful city, already made mention of it. The inhabitants purified by God. As a beautiful bride adorned for her husband. Third thing, it is a city fashioned and formed by God in heaven. And the purpose of the New Jerusalem is fellowship. You know, it's interesting. We live in such different times. We went from being an agricultural nation to an industrial nation, and people moved away from family, off the farms, where you might live with, grandma and grandpa were there, and sometimes great grandma and grandpa, and then you were there, and then your kids would be there, and you'd have 3, 4, 5 generations all living together. And there was a different kind of intimacy and a different kind of accountability, and you had the help of the older generations to help raise up the next generations. Well, then we go to industrial, and everybody moves from the farm to the city, where there are far more people but far less intimacy. In other words, you live not just with your family next to another plot where there was another family, but you lived on a block where there were lots of people, but you didn't know them as well as you knew your family. And now we've moved from the industrial to the informational age, and we've entered into a time where people are like, I have 400 friends on MySpace, and I have 500 friends on Facebook, and I'm starting to get into Twitter and all that stuff. By the way, if you send me something for MySpace or Facebook or any of that and I don't respond, don't feel offended. I never respond. I'm not involved in those things. I don't have time for social networking. Why? I'm involved with real people. And the thing is if you have 900 friends but you never have a meal with one of them, you never sit down face to face with one of them, what kind of friendship is that? What kind of fellowship is that? Listen, a friend you only communicate by means of typing or talking or, listen, God has better for us. He wants us to be face to face. He wants us to be touching one another and ministering to one another and enjoying all of that. And so the point is, He fashions and forms this city so there will be intimacy in it. It has always been His plan and His desire. This city, fourth thing, is it connects the new earth to the new heaven. Now, it doesn't tell us exactly if the city, when it descends, if it lands or if it hovers. And, God could have it do either. No problem for Him, right? And we're going to find out some other pretty amazing things about this city. But here's the fifth and most wonderful thing about the New Jerusalem. Our King, our Lord, our Savior is going to dwell there with us. That's what He says here. He says the tabernacle of God is with men, and He will dwell with them. Listen, it's always been His desire that we would draw close to Him. He calls us to do it. He makes provision for it. He wants an intimate relationship, not a distant one, not a legal one, a love relationship. God doesn't want to be your friend on MySpace. He wants to occupy the heart of your home and life. And He wants to be there in the midst of you in your fellowship with other people. And so the tabernacle of God is with men, and He will dwell with them. In the Old Testament, that's exactly how they set up the tabernacle in the wilderness. It was at the center of the camp. The idea being that wherever you were, if you looked in, you were going to find the Lord. That's where He met with them and spoke to them and ministered to them. When they built the temple, it was the same thing. They built it there in Jerusalem, and you would go up to Jerusalem and you would go up to the temple. It was the high point. And when you left, you were going down. There was no way to go anywhere but down and out. And so God has always desired this fellowship. John tells us in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And in John 1:14, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, tabernacled among us, pitched His tent among us. Why? It uses the terminology that relates not to the temple, but to the tabernacle. Why? It was temporal. He came the first time temporally. When He comes again, it will be to fellowship with us forever. When they were giving instruction concerning the naming of Jesus, they say at one point, you shall call His name Jesus, for He will save His people from their sin. But they were also told that He would be called Emmanuel, which means what? God with us. Yeah, God with us. It has two very important foundational meanings. First of all, it means that Jesus is God. And we don't want to miss that, because if He isn't God, or wasn't God, I should say, since I know He is, if He wasn't God, He couldn't save us. God makes this so clear in Isaiah again and again and again. He says, I'm the creator, I'm the savior, there is no God before me, there'll be no God after me. I am the only God. I am your only hope. And when Jesus comes on the scene, and there are many who say today, well, he never claimed to be God. That's not true. He received worship. He acknowledged who he was. Every chapter in John's gospel has some clear declaration of his deity. Read through it. And if you can't find them, well, then we'll sit down. But you read through it and find them first. They're there. Well, here's the thing, is that Emmanuel, God, but not just God, God with us. It speaks of the intimacy that he so desires with each and every one of us. Now, this little section of chapter 21 concludes with some things that are not going to be a part of the new heavens and the new earth. And I got to tell you, well, I'm grateful for Isaiah's promise that we're not going to, be remembering those things we left behind. None of us would have any problem leaving behind the tears and the death and the sorrow and the crying and the pain that he says we will never experience again. By the way, tears, death, sorrow, crying, pain, they are all the result of sin. I'm not trying to say that every time you suffer or sorrow, it's a result of your own sin. But because we do sin and bring suffering and sorrow on ourselves, because others sin against us, that causes us great grief and sorrow. Sometimes people we don't even know sin, and they sin at a distance, but it affects us anyway. And what he's saying is there's going to be no more tears, no more death. Can you imagine a world where no one dies, where no one weeps, where we don't have to wish, Lord, if only I hadn't, or if only I would have, or no sorrow, no crying, no pain, no more tears. It was the first one that came up, and I was thinking back, we're doing the grandchild thing now, and we got our first Elijah. We call him LBJ, Little Buddy Jr., and now LB3 is on the way, Little Buddy the Third. I'm going to work on the T-shirt, but anyway, because we're in that stage, I'm enjoying something that I'm so grateful for from the Lord. And somebody once said that grandchildren are God's gift for not killing your children, and some of us really get that. And the deal is no more tears. I thought, wasn't there a baby shampoo? Because, we're into baby magic now, but baby magic bath, but no more tears. It sounded familiar, so I Googled it just because I don't want to make a reference and have it not be real. Of course, Johnson did make and probably still makes No More Tears. But you know what comes up if you Google No More Tears? Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah, he has an album called No More Tears, and I thought, that's even better, Lord. No more Ozzy Osbourne. No neighbors blasting that stuff, and you're trying to sleep or rest. Well, anyway, no more death, no more sorrow, no more crying, no more pain, because there will be no more sin. Then he who sat on the throne said, behold, I make all things new. It's another major theme of the chapter, and actually chapters 21 and 2 go beautifully together. We're taking them one at a time because there's just too much detail to get through it quickly and not glean all we can from it. When he says, I make all things new, he means just that. You'll be new, the heavens will be new, the earth will be new, everything will be as God intended it to be. And then something happens, at least this is how I read it, and I could be wrong about this one, but I think at this point John was just kind of spacing out. Like he's looking, I know if it were me, for sure that would be it. But I'm one of those daydreamers, He's looking and he's checking it out, and he has to be reminded, hey, write it down. It said, he said to me, write. And it's emphatic. Why? Because I think he forgot why he was there. You're supposed to get it and you're supposed to write it. So he starts to write it, and then he reminds him, these words are true and faithful. Why? They come from a God who is true and faithful.
I read a verse that was referenced in connection with what we just heard about there being no more sin and all things being new. That verse is 2 Corinthians 5:16, and it reads, therefore, from now on, we regard no one according to the flesh. Even though we've known Christ according to the flesh, yet now we know him thus no longer. In the new heaven and the new earth, there will be no more flesh either, at least the kind of flesh that desires sin and actually sins. This means that our relationships with each other will be totally different. No more relational drama, no more hurting each other. It will be like every person in heaven will be our best friend, but even better, for there still can be drama between best friends. Nothing but complete love and trust between each other. Now, that's quite a thought, don't you think?
The Calvary Road is a ministry of Calvary Chapel Chico, and you can visit our website, ccchico.com, or download the CC Chico app to contact us and listen to other studies from Pastor Sam. You can also listen to The Calvary Road as a daily podcast by visiting thecalvaryroad.com. We'd love to hear from you, and until next time, may you find grace and peace as your journey takes you down the Calvary Road.
And your grace